nations such as the United States, Russia, and Germany. Now, for the past year, most Canadians have been postponing or canceling their travel plans for safety and health reasons, but there are still plenty of opportunities to get out of the house, to see something you may have never even noticed before, even as restrictions continue to tighten. So how do you channel that joy of exploration and discovery back into your life during a global pandemic? Our fantastic panel of guests tonight are going to remind you of just how much we all have to look forward to and how you can still indulge in your wanderlust as safely as possible. First, I'm thrilled to welcome Lorraine Simpson. She started her career from the ground up as a travel entrepreneur in 2005, and she's never looked back. She's a travel expert for Cityline TV and spent last summer putting together her own travel TV show, which is now screening on all Air Canada's in-flight entertainment systems. It's quite fittingly called What's on Your Post-Pandemic Bucket List. Thank you so much for joining us, Lorraine.
Thank you for having me, Barbara.
Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Andrew Damour. Andrew is the co-founder of Fly Trippers, which is an online travel media site that helps Canadians travel more for less by spotting flight deals and sharing travel tips. He's an expert in budget travel, finding cheap flights, and maximizing travel rewards. Andrew actually quit a lucrative management consulting job to launch Fly Trippers and has traveled to more than 60 countries. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hi.
Finally, I'm delighted to introduce Jantine Van Kruchten. Jantine has served as the Director of Communications for Ottawa Tourism since November 2003. She's responsible for pitching story ideas to and organizing visits by travel media from all around the world to show off the assets of Canada's capital region. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Jantine.
Oh, it's a great pleasure to be here.
I'd like to start off by asking each one of you to share how you caught the travel bug and what led you to pursue a career in this industry. Let's start with you, Lorraine.
So I started very young. My first trip was when I was a baby. My father was in the Air Force, and we used to travel all over the world because, you know, he had a job that took us all over the world. And then as an adult, I moved out of the town that I lived in, which was a seaside town, and I moved to London. And then I moved to Germany, and then I moved to Hong Kong. And of course, every time I moved, I loved to visit all the little places around me, which weren't too far away. And the reason that I loved it so much was age 7, there was a show in England called Holiday. And I found actually a link the other day. It was quite funny. This show it was a travel show. And they went all over the world. They went to Seychelles, they went to the Bahamas. And I mean, we're talking a long time ago. And they used to come on a Sunday night on the BBC and say, next up, we're going to take you to the Seychelles. And I used to think, I want that job. I want to do that job. You know, so here we are 48 years later, not to age myself, and I have that job. So it's great. Never give up your dreams. No matter what you have as a dream, never give up your dreams. I tell my children that every day.
I love that story, and so inspirational, especially at a time like this. What about you, Andrew?
So when I was a kid, we used to always have a couple of vacations every year where we'd go. We never went really far. I didn't go outside North America until I was 21 or so, or 22 even. So it was really starting with just the thrill of discovering a completely new place, new city, seeing new things. And well, as a management consultant, like you said, when in the career, there was always this problem that we didn't have a lot of time off to travel. And I decided, well, wouldn't it be nice if I could work from anywhere, if I could actually explore the world, because I had already visited something like 40 states and almost all provinces, but I hadn't traveled internationally a lot. So I figured, why not take the opportunity to do what I'm able to do, and what I love is finding cheap flights. And that's really what a lot of people kept telling me. How do you find these really cheap flights and these deals? So you should share it next time so that we can, you know, take advantage of them too. So that's why I said maybe this is a good business idea, and actually just publish these on a website, and if people can, you know, take advantage. And the limited time flight deals are really they expire really quickly, so only a select few people will get every deal because, you know, they sell out. And so we figured if our audience could be the first ones to get onto that deal, it would be, you know, a good win-win for us and for them. And that's how I was able to travel more often and turn passion into travel into my career as well.
I'd love to hear more later on in the show about how you've had to adapt and pivot what you do for a living, given the circumstances of the world right now. But first, I'd like to hear from Jantine. I mean, you're obviously a lover of all things Capital Region. You've been doing this for a long time. What drew you to this career, and what is it about Ottawa that keeps you ticking?
Well, it's funny because I grew up in a small town in southwestern Ontario, and our vacations weren't elaborate at all. When I was 16, I spent 6 weeks actually in Quebec City learning French on a French exchange, or not an exchange, but a way to learn French. And when I was 15, I had the chance with my parents to drive across Canada. So that I'm a lover of Canada first. A bit later in life, at the end of high school, I was an exchange student in Germany for a year, and that taught me a lot. That was my first time off the continent. I learned a brand new language without having any background whatsoever. And I really learned resourcefulness. Like I got through that. If I was homesick or if I had a problem, I had to make my way through. But when I came to Ottawa for university, that's where I fell in love. I really feel like Ottawa is home. It's where I'm meant to be. And all the things that I loved about all of Canada, I can find here in the capital.
That's really inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing, Jantine. Now I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about what's going on in our world right now. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the importance of supporting small retailers, shopping local, and buying or ordering delivery and takeout whenever we can from restaurants. But there hasn't been so much conversation about people in the travel industry. I mean, everyone from travel agents to those who work in aviation and so on. And so I'd love to hear your perspective on how COVID-19 has affected you and your colleagues, but also on a personal level, because a lot of people are struggling, and tourism has been particularly hit hard. I know, Lorraine, you have some strong opinions on that. Let's start with you.
I do. So I have lost everything, 100% everything. But I'm lucky. My boyfriend works in an essential service, so therefore he actually is paying all the bills, which has allowed me to quit even trying or attempting to sell travel and going more into a media side, so that I've capitalized on being able to use my voice. And I have absolutely devoted everything to trying to help travel and tourism recover. Pretty much everything I've done over the last year has been pro bono. So if that's a word even in our industry, but meaning, I'm volunteering. I've used my COVID loan to make the show, the TV show, and I'm not earning anything other than what the government, thankfully, is giving us, which of course doesn't happen in other countries. And my goal is to work with other companies who are getting out there and getting their information out there to help people, to work with the governments, to work with the people that actually make these rules, so that we can get back to travel safely. And that is the key, is we want to be able to get back to travel safely. And travel will change, but we can talk about that later. But I think that it's really important to understand that we have to stay strong, do what they're asking us to do, and then get through this, because at the other end, it's going to boom.
I think you're right, Lorraine, in that there's been a tremendous lack of consistency when it comes to messaging about travel, and I'm sure it must be frustrating for those who work in the travel industry, and we can talk about that a little more in detail later. But first, Jantine, I'd love to hear from you in terms of, how has it affected Ottawa, and how has it affected you as a professional in the industry?
Well, definitely the industry has been hard hit. In 2019, visitor spending accounted for $2.2 billion in the Ottawa area. We predicted in 2020 it would be $800 million, so a loss of $1.4 billion in our economy. That's nothing to sneeze at. However, I always try to find a silver lining, and I must say that the people in our industry are among the most resilient and creative and resourceful and wonderful people. So they have in so many ways pivoted from everything from restaurant patios where there weren't patios before, or new attractions like Saunders Farm doing campfire nights in the summer of 2022 and into the fall. Escape Manor doing a virtual escape room. I really can't say enough about how people have tried to be creative and have tried to roll with the punches or with the circumstances that they've been dealt, because it has not been a linear path. There have been mountains, there have been valleys, and everything in between. So personally, I've been working from home since March of 2013, since March of 2013.
Like it.
But I'm lucky. My husband and I, we've got a great relationship, and we're still together. We're still talking, and in fact, he even retired this year. So that's been another wrinkle added to the mix. But it's been incredible to see how much things have changed and how resilient people have been.
And what's the mental health situation like for people in the industry? Again, that's not something that we hear as much about.
No, and it's true. I think it's also hard hit to a lot of the frontline staff. So frontline staff at hotels or restaurants, or in the summertime, boat tours or walking tours, all those companies that were affected. In a lot of cases, the people who were hardest hit were the frontline staff. So they're the youngest or the entry level positions into the industry. And that's hard. Like, it's hard when you're trying to start out in an industry to be set back like that. So we've been trying as Ottawa Tourism with our 450 member businesses to keep everyone informed about where we are in the pandemic, what aid packages are available through different levels of government, what other destinations have been doing. So kind of brainstorming on best practices, or have you tried this? Have you tried that? And just trying to keep people informed. It is a cliche to say, but it is unprecedented times. These are unprecedented times. We have not gone through this before. So it's okay to feel not okay and to ask for help and to rally together. And when you have the energy and the resources, then by all means help. And that's where a lot of that buy local, support local, order takeout from your favorite restaurant, all those steps help maintain the industry until we can come back in a more robust way.
Of course, and of course, we forget that the travel industry isn't just about taking a flight or hopping on the train. It's about all the other industries like retail, like restaurants, and shopping, and so on. We're just about to go to break, but when we come back, I want to hear more from you, Andrew, on what life is like joining us from Quebec City, where you're currently located. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details. Experience Winterlude across Canada. Watch the virtual show exploring Canada's winter traditions. Meet the carvers of Winterlude's first national ice carving competition. Vote online for your favorite sculpture. Celebrate Canada's artistic diversity with Fosia, Ariane Moffat, William Prince, Tracy Trash, Corneille, Ria May, and the incredible Eladj Balde. Join us February 5th at 7 p.m. This is Winterlude.
Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m., it's the RTV Quiz. Giovanni Petiti hosts a weekly trivia competition that lets you play from the comfort of your couch. Play along at home and challenge your friends. And don't forget to follow along on social media. Let us know who's top of trivia, and you can find yourself featured on a future episode.
Are you kidding me, folks?
The RTV Quiz, Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV or at rogerstv.com/RTV Quiz.
Each week on Grill This, Smoke That, Steph Legary showcases delicious recipes from across Canada, all done on the grill. Join Steph and his special guests on Grill This, Smoke That, Fridays on Rogers TV.
Hi, good evening, and welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and on tonight's show, we're talking about travel in a COVID-19 world with very special guests, Lorraine Simpson, Andrew Dunmore, and Jantine Van Crecton joining us from Ottawa Tourism. Before we went to break, we talked a little bit about the lack of consistent messaging surrounding travel and COVID-19 and the importance of supporting those who are in the tourism industry. Travel shaming seems to be the latest trend these days, and at the same time, a Harvard University report that came out last month declared that travel during the pandemic is no riskier than going to a grocery store. Researchers from Harvard School of Public Health found a relatively very low risk of acquiring COVID-19 while flying, thanks to air filtering systems and requirements that passengers wear masks. A U.S. Department of Defense study has concluded the same thing, that the chance of transmission is statistically insignificant on an airplane. Of course, at the same time, we all know travel involves so much more than just the flight. It's getting to the airport, lining up to board, and the close contact in between and after the fact. I'd love to hear from our panelists as to what your experience has been, and is flying the new smoking? And that's kind of a segue to you, Andrew. We didn't have a chance to get to you before we went to break as to how the industry has, or how the current pandemic has affected what you do for a living. I know that you managed to get some travel in during the quieter months. Tell us a little bit about the ride that you've been on for the last few months.
Yeah, so as a travel website, our mission is to help Canadians travel more. And this, for a while, we were like, well, even though the recommendations are to not travel, some people are traveling, and it's our role in a way to be there to help them do it safely as well, do it responsibly. So that's why we went on our first trip in August, where we went to Europe for a month and experienced every single part of the travel experience during a pandemic, so that we can better advise our readers, our audience, about how to do it safely, what the reality is on the ground, and things like that. So yeah, like you said, there's so many misconceptions, and the one that strikes us the most is really about the flights, as you mentioned. Like, so many people like, oh, why can I go in a movie theater if I can go in a plane for 3 hours? Well, movie theaters don't have HEPA filters that filter 99.9% of particles. It's not the same air quality. So like you said, there's so many studies that show that air quality on planes is great. Obviously, like I said, it's not the only risk, but on planes, things, there are things to worry about if you're traveling now, but on the plane is actually not, it should be the least of your worries for sure.
Now, Lorraine, you sent us some footage of your experience traveling over the last few months, and I know you have a lot to say about traveling safely. We'll pull up some of that footage while you speak to some of your experiences. Tell us a little bit about some of the measures that are being taken, and what's your perspective in whether it's safe to travel outside of Canada right now? What are some of the things people need to take into consideration when they're doing their homework, when they're making that decision whether or not it's safe for them and their loved ones that they're in contact with to travel?
Well, I think it is going to be the safest way to travel in the future. Not that it wasn't the safest way in the first place, but it's even safer now. And perhaps at the moment, staying home isn't such a bad idea right now at this moment. However, in the future, and the not too distant future, providing we have testing and tracing and being incredibly cohesive in the way that we do the testing and in the way that we track and trace people, I think that we can travel in a post-pandemic world. We just have to get it correct. We have to work with the government, with the people that know what they're doing, with the roundtables and the companies like 10-3, who has this amazing tracing app that is non-invasive and protects your privacy. There's so many things that are available for people. And the airlines, of course, have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars. And at the moment, they're not being bailed out. This is not just us. There is no takeout for travel agents. There is nothing to help them to get their business back up and running, that people are turning into being realtors and everything. So it's so important that we think about the bigger picture at the moment, because let's say tomorrow the government says, okay, travel is open again. You can sell travel as much as you like. Nobody's going to get shamed. Everything's going to be fine. So then you do that. But the people aren't going to travel next week. They're going to travel in a year's time or 6 months' time from now. They're not going to travel right away. And people travel for different reasons. So you've got business travel. You've got me seeing my parents in England. You've got me seeing my daughter in Vancouver. You know, there's so many different reasons that people need to travel. And there are so many different countries that rely almost 100% on the tourism money coming in. Places like Myanmar, places like Thailand, there's the amount of money that they need in tourism is vast. So it's such a bigger picture, and the devastation is not going to go away anytime soon. And we all need to really work together to repair this.
Certainly the developing countries, as you mentioned, Lorraine, have got the short end of the stick when it comes to losing out on all the tourism income that has been generated in previous years. I'm wondering, from what you've seen in the aviation industry, what kinds of new technologies and trends are you seeing being implemented? Are there a lot of new touchless technologies that are coming to effect now and into the future to make the experience contactless and safer?
Yes, so you can check in, of course, online at home. You can even print your bag tags at home, or you can go to the airport with your boarding pass in your hand, on your phone. You can put it underneath. You don't touch anything. You then put your bag onto the conveyor belt. That then goes down into the hold. Nobody else touches it, and it is sanitized along the way, and it's also sanitized on arrival. So safety-wise, you can actually go all the way through the airport without touching anything. You can literally be a touch-free way through. Now, there are even ways that they are bringing in these apps whereby you can have everything almost in your wallet. If you have an iPhone, you know the little wallet app in your iPhone? Well, they're developing something similar to that. Actually, it's ready to go now, whereby you can keep everything from your boarding pass, which I already use for that, your testing results, your passport can be in there. Everything can be in this one place, so that from curb to plane to hotel and home again, everything is seamless and safe. And this is a way forward. And I think this is going to be adapted for the future. I don't think things are going to change much, certainly over the next year or 2 years. We're going to have to travel differently, and we're going to have to get used to the new rules.
Yeah, you're right on the money about that. Now, Jantina, I'm curious, with more people avoiding flying more than ever, have you seen a surge in popularity of road trips? Are you seeing more local tourism and regional tourism coming to Ottawa as a destination of choice? Are you seeing more people come in from Toronto for the weekend, for instance?
Definitely, that's something we saw in the summer of 2020. So between lockdowns, if you will, staycations, even Ottawans deciding to spend a weekend in a hotel or even a weeknight, because everything blends together nowadays. But it is important. It is important to have a change of scenery. As a destination marketing organization, Ottawa Tourism, a DMO, we look at the research, and there is research being done by Destination Canada, the organization that markets all of Canada as a travel destination, and Destination Ontario for the province, that looks at things like resident sentiment. And resident sentiment is exactly what we were talking about before. How do locals feel about seeing someone from Toronto or from Montreal in Ottawa? So again, to Lorraine's point, it's not like, even if the government said tomorrow everything's fine and dandy, it will take time for everyone to feel comfortable. And we can help by sharing information about, especially our hotels, the lengths to which they go to keep things safe. Our restaurants, our attractions, when our museums were open, like, they take this very seriously. This is their livelihood. They're not going to mess around. So our role as a destination marketing organization and working with our members is to share those stories, to share the information that will make people people feel comfortable to travel and will recognize that it is a low-risk activity and that there are measures you can take to make it even less of a risk. So that's where we're gearing up for when lockdown ends, that we will have those messages. And that's how we spent the summer, talking a lot about staycations, about rural attractions, even exploring your own neighborhoods. I mean, I know I've walked on every neighboring street around me, and I might not have done that if we weren't in a pandemic. There are hidden treasures everywhere in the region, and we need to discover them.
If there's one silver lining to the pandemic, I think it's that people are much more inclined to do that local travel and tourism. I mean, I always sort of chuckle to myself at the fact that, often it was more expensive to see your own country or to travel within your own country than it is to go abroad. And so a lot of people I know who are big time heavy travelers would, they might have seen every country in Europe, but they may not have seen as much of their own backyard. So I think there's an opportunity there to see a lot of amazing and magical things that you hadn't noticed before. And I'm wondering, Jantine, what are some of the things that you noticed before, maybe took for granted before, that you kind of discovered or rediscovered in Ottawa?
Well, even before the pandemic, I always said that I have the best job in Ottawa because I get to show off the city to people literally from around the world. So when you live in a city, you know everything, warts and all your city. But I got to see it every day, every week from somebody else's perspective. So someone from China looks at Ottawa in a different way than somebody from Ottawa. So for things like skating on the Rideau Canal Skateway, that is a bucket list opportunity. That is something that does not exist in many other places around the world. Being able to go whitewater rafting with Ottawa City Rafting in the Ottawa River in view of Parliament Hill, that doesn't exist in another G7 capital city. Gatineau Park is a gem. It's in our backyard. We are so lucky to have those hiking trails and cross-country ski and snowshoeing in the winter and mountain biking. People travel for those experiences because they can't get that within 15 minutes of downtown where they live. So there are so many aspects of life in Ottawa. The Tulip Festival, the Canadian Tulip Festival in May, seeing 250,000 tulips bloom in Commissioners Park along the Rideau Canal, that is amazing. That is something that attracts people. Festivals have taken a hit, have either moved virtual or canceled, and I think it will be a while, similar to the travel agents and other parts of the industry that won't rebound right away. Large-scale festivals like Ottawa Blues Fest, that's not something that's going to come back automatically. You won't want to be in those huge crowds. Not everybody will want to be in those huge crowds, but business travel is another one. We've partnered actually with The Hague for the Hybrid Cities Alliance, and this is a way for, say, take a major international conference that used to be held in one city in the world each year. Maybe going forward, there might be a North American headquarters in Ottawa, there might be The Hague in Europe, there might be Brisbane in Australia, that would regroup people from that region to get together, still have an online component, and still connect the dots between the various locations. That's a new way of approaching, a new way of doing business than what we've done before. So we're trying to think outside the box. We're trying to innovate.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and there's a lot of inspiration to be found from that. We're going to break right now, but when we come back, we'll talk more about COVID travel tips and trends in a post-pandemic world. We'll be right back after the break.
Join us as we look back at previous investiture ceremonies honoring great Canadians. Watch the Order of Canada exclusively on Rogers TV.
It's about sharing and caring. It's about doing and belonging. It's about living life to its fullest. And it's about laughing out loud. We are L'Arche Canada, And we're about witnessing and sharing the gifts of all people. Learn more about us today.
Looking for great seats to all the action? Rogers Super Sports Pack delivers. With NBA League Pass, get up to 40 out-of-market games every week, all season long. More dunks, more slams, more to love, live in HD. NBA League Pass, part of the Rogers Super Sports Pack. All this for only $35.95 a month. Order through your remote on Channel 431 or call 1-888-ROGERS-1 today.
Ottawa's local shops, restaurants, and services are woven into the fabric of our city. We can all help them during these challenging times. Order from them online, purchase gift certificates to use later, order meals for takeout or delivery, send them messages of support on social media. Please do it today. Learn how at ottawa.ca/buylocal.
Hi, I'm Harriet Clooney. Come check out my show, Scrap Cooking, where I'm going to show you how to use the bits and bobs, the ends, pieces of things that you might otherwise throw in the compost. I'm going to show you how to turn them into something delicious.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. On tonight's show, we're talking about travel in a COVID-19 world with special guests Jantine Van Krekten, Lorraine Simpson, and Andrew Damour. Andrew, before we went to break, we started talking a little bit about some of the trends in a COVID-19 world when it comes to travel, some of the new developments we've seen, some of the ways in which travel and tourism providers have pivoted to meet the current needs and requirements of today's world. For instance, we're seeing change in cancellation fees are being waived, and hotels are focusing more on staycations, among many other things. Talk to us a little bit about some of the trends that you've observed and how providers are changing their business models, I guess, to meet the needs of their customers.
Yeah, so that's really one positive that we have to, consider for the very, the very many negative aspects of this pandemic is that for consumers, right now there's absolutely a very, very big need for flexibility when booking. Like even if it's not for travel now, if it's for future travel, a lot of airlines and hotels are providing free changes or a lot more flexible policies than they used to. So that's something that'll probably stay with us at least for the next year or so, as the situation really resolves itself with changing restrictions and things that can affect travel plans. So that's one positive for us as travelers. Another thing that's definitely going to stay is the idea of booking closer in. So those more spontaneous travel, like that's what we've been telling a lot of our audience has been asking us, like, when should I book? What can I book? How can I plan a trip for now, for later? And really the thing that comes most often is that if you're not flexible or you're not ready for your plans to change, or if you're not comfortable with, like things that are not as set in stone, well, it's a lot more difficult right now because of the pandemic, because like we saw during the holidays, those who traveled during Christmas break, they had to get a test before entering Canada, which was nothing, there was nothing like that since March as a requirement. And then suddenly, after 9 months of inaction by the government, they suddenly decided to add a test requirement in the middle of the holidays. So things changed. We're not the only country who's added things. Some countries are open to Canadians, and then the next week they're closed completely. Some countries don't have a quarantine, and then they add a quarantine. So you have to be really flexible and easygoing, and which is a great quality and trait to have when you're traveling all the time, even before the pandemic. Just go with the flow and learn to appreciate every moment and be able to change your plans if anything comes up. And right now, it's not just an option. It's a must.
Now, it's worth noting that there are different kinds of trips and vacations depending, I guess, on your appetite for risk. You sent us some images that we're going to pull up right now of a few different locations. I guess these are all locations to which you've traveled since the pandemic last March?
Yeah, exactly. So again, we've seen a lot of people, opt for, nature escapes in the great outdoors, more rural destinations. there are ways to travel where you can keep distancing, maximum physical distancing very easily. If obviously for places like urban destinations, it's a lot harder, and they're definitely going to come back stronger. Like there are so many attractions in cities, and that's going to be maybe something a lot of people miss in terms of events, in terms of cultural. But right now, a lot of people just want to go somewhere where there's, national parks where you're not going to be elbow to elbow and just in crowds or anything. So like I've visited a couple countries in Europe, and compared to even going to the grocery store here, like you can definitely keep a lot of distance in national parks, going hiking and at the beach, and in smaller destinations that aren't. And right now they're obviously not very overcrowded either. So it's another way to kind of minimize risk when we're talking about traveling, whether it's now or in a few months when the lockdown is over.
And some of the travel destinations that you sent us images of are kind of still off the beaten path in terms of, I think Albania was one of them, Malta. And then you sent us an image of yourself on a plane. It was on a flight from Montreal to somewhere in Greece. Is that right? And you were the only person on the plane?
We weren't the only person, but we had a couple of rows to ourselves, that's for sure. So again, I took 24 flights since July. So I mean, I've had a lot. It's not just like a very small sample size. I've been on many planes, international, domestic, here, in other countries, and the rules are followed by almost virtually everyone. And if someone's not wearing a mask over their nose, well, usually the flight attendants come very quickly to tell them, hey, put your mask up. So I've never felt unsafe in every environment that I've been to while traveling. Again, everyone's situation is different. Everyone has a very different tolerance for risk. But I think what's important to keep in mind is if you do travel, you have to do it safely and responsibly. And not just assume that there's no pandemic, because there is one, and there are different measures to take. Obviously the experience is not the same, but it's doable safely when you take the proper precautions.
Now, Lorraine, you've also sent us some footage of some more off the beaten tourism destinations. For instance, you're a big fan of Myanmar as a place that's off the beaten path, and you've also talked to us a little bit about how people will be looking for more experiential-based vacations after the pandemic. We can maybe run some of those images while you talk to us about, what are some of the trends, some of the hot destinations that you foresee people flocking to after the pandemic. Are we going to be seeing kind of a turn away from the traditional Londons and Parises and Romes to much more far-flung, exotic locations?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a trend where people want to be like Andrew said, they're going to want to be a little bit more outdoorsy and a little bit more off the beaten path. So let's say you would normally go to England and you might go to London. Well, you can avoid London. It's only a very small part of the UK. And you can go to the Lake District. You can go to the Cotswolds. There's some beautiful places that you can go to that are very off the beaten path. And as a travel professional, the travel agents have never been so more valuable, really, because people are going to need to know where these places are. A lot of countries that have been incredibly cautious with COVID, they have really crushed the curve. The numbers are ridiculous. We traveled to St. Lucia, and their numbers overall were under 300. And they've invited visitors from all over the world, but they've still kept their numbers very, very low. So it's going to be the places that really were careful, the places that are taking the most precautions in the hotels and things. And, also people are going to want to stay closer to home too. So it's up to us to find these places. Myanmar is one of my favorites because it's so out of the way. It's so different. One of the places I went to was a private island, and it took me 2 planes, 2 boats, and to get there, and a couple of days to get there. It's part of the journey. It's part of being a traveler and enjoying the journey just as much as you enjoy the experience. And these places are going to need us more than ever. I give you an idea. There's a place that I love, which is in Africa, called Jabulani, and it's a hotel, but she also rescues elephants when they have been stuck in a trap or something like that. And so she's got many of these elephants at their location, and without the tourism dollars, of course, they're really struggling to take care of the elephants. So places like that really are struggling, and they need us. And we have to try to get back to travel, but to get back to travel sensibly and safely. It's not just about being safe. It's about being sensible. It's about being able to, there's all this craziness at the moment going, oh, we don't want testing. Yes, we do. We want testing because it's going to allow us to move forward and start to travel again. Okay, it's inconvenient, and okay, at the moment it's a little bit disjointed and the pricing is different and the rules are different. If we can come up with a rule that's a standard across the board worldwide, we will be able to reboot the travel and tourism industry. We've got to stop moaning and complaining about the restrictions that come in, and we've got to say, okay, we'll follow these rules. Let's all follow these rules. Let's all wear our masks, and let's get back on the planes, because until we do that, if we're all moaning and complaining and everything, we're not going to get back into the travel industry at all. And we've got to be cohesive.
Now, medical and travel insurance is an important part of traveling abroad. Is there any way to get COVID-19 travel insurance right now? Who's offering that to Canadians?
Pretty much every one of them is offering it, and some of them are offering it for free. So some airlines actually give you COVID insurance for free if you book a trip with them. Now, it might just be the COVID medical piece of it, and then you would top it up with your regular travel insurance. However, it's something that has been tackled very carefully, and the insurances have been fantastic. Manulife is one of them that I use, and they've been brilliant. They came out with an insurance, and you can travel safely, and they will cover you if you happen to get COVID in destination, which you shouldn't, because you should be traveling somewhere that's been careful, and you should be able to travel there and be thoughtful about how you're traveling, and follow the protocols, follow the rules. I went to a place in the summer and everybody was all huddled into one place. And I thought, no, this isn't right, guys. If we all could follow the rules, we will get back much quicker.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's good information about the insurance to tuck away for future reference. We're just about to go to break, but when we come back, we'll do a deep dive into some of the local attractions in Ottawa and beyond for you to look forward to in the months ahead with Jantine Van Kregten from Ottawa Tourism. More on that after the break.
My Uncle Cheney was one of over 150,000 Indigenous children that were taken to residential schools between the 1800s and 1996. My uncle ran away from school wanting to get home to his mom and dad, and sadly he didn't make it and died of exposure. When Gord Downey found out about my late Uncle Cheney's story, he wrote Secret Path, a series of poems that became an album, then a graphic novel, a documentary, and a concert. Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asked us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
Hey, did you know?
More than 4,500 Canadians are waiting for an organ transplant right now.
Right now. 4,500.
People are dying.
And you could save a life. 90% of Canadians say they're willing to donate their organs.
But only a few are registered.
So what are you waiting for? Get registered.
It's easy and it's free.
Leave a legacy. Be a hero.
Save a life.
Find out how to register today. Go to kidney.ca.
but I know I'm getting there.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and on tonight's show, we're talking about traveling safely in a COVID-19 world with special guests Jantine Van Kregten from Ottawa Tourism, Lorraine Simpson, and Andrew Demore. We touched on this briefly before in other segments on the show, Jantine, about some of the things we all have to look forward to in Ottawa, but I wanted to take a chance in our last segment together to do a deep dive into what Ottawa and the region has to offer in terms of tourism activities. I know one thing that you're really looking forward to is a new Inter-Provincial Zip Line that's coming later this year. Maybe we can pull up some of the images of it in construction right now. What is that going to be all about?
Well, it's called Interzip Rogers, and it's the world's first interprovincial zip line. You'll start on the Ontario side of the Ottawa River, and you'll end up on the Quebec side of the Ottawa River in the ZB property, so just west of downtown Ottawa. It's a dual line zip line, so two people can go at once on separate lines. If you look to your right, you'll see Parliament Hill, the Ottawa River, downtown Ottawa, downtown Gatineau. To your left, you'll see the Chaudière Falls, and especially in the spring, the amount of water that comes through there is going to be spectacular. So that's really something we've been looking forward to. It was supposed to open in 2020, but with the pandemic, it was delayed a year. But they're looking at spring 2021. Tickets are on sale now, like you can reserve your ticket and then find your exact date and time once their opening date is announced. Also in the spring, of course, the Canadian Tulip Festival and the tulips will bloom. Tied in with that this year is an exhibition at the National Gallery of Canada called Rembrandt in Amsterdam. So Rembrandt is the theme. They've actually planted in the ground right now are tulip bulbs, Rembrandt tulip bulbs. They're purple and pink and white, very soft colors, gorgeous. So the first day of the Canadian Tulip Festival, May 14th, is also the first day of the Rembrandt in Amsterdam exhibition at the National Gallery, which runs all summer. Outdoor activities are always popular in Ottawa all year round. So in the winter, we're still snowshoeing and cross-country skiing on the winter trail system. There's 6 winter trails across Ottawa. Ski Ottawa East, the Rideau Trail, the Britannia, the Ski West. But the S-Jam Winter Trail is probably the most popular. It runs from the Mill Street Brew Pub, just west of downtown, all the way along the Ottawa River till past Westboro Beach. And that is great for winter biking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, just walking. And of course, as we transition into spring, cycling is a huge part of living in Ottawa and exploring Ottawa. Hiking trails, Gatineau Park, the Greenbelt has amazing trails and amazing hidden spaces and forest walks, and truly, I know it's an overused cliche, but truly something for everyone. So if you've got little ones that who have little feet and can't walk too far, there's quick little trails. There's more adventurous, more hardcore trails with a variety of different scenery. So Mer Bleu in the East End has flora and fauna that's more representative of the Arctic than of Eastern Ontario. So by doing a little bit, that's right. It's just past Orleans, or just south of Orleans. They've got a nice little boardwalk, so a short 1.2 kilometer walk, I think it is, but then longer trails nearby as well, so you can explore more robustly. It's the rural areas of Ottawa, everything from Manotick to the St. Albert Cheese Factory. That's a great place to visit all year round for your cheese needs. Ice cream in the summer, delicious poutine with fresh, squeaky cheese curds, the best in the region, the best in the country. I think I can say. Yeah, I know, me too. That's one beauty of the pandemic too, is that you gotta eat. So there are amazing restaurants. Amazingly, there's a lot of restaurants that opened in the pandemic. So Heartbreakers Pizza opened a couple days before the pandemic started. Arlo, a great restaurant on Somerset Street with natural wines. But every neighborhood has had some successes. And I think that's another, like, there's fun ways you can get out, and even in a lockdown situation, even in a close-knit situation, you can explore neighborhoods that you're not familiar with. So go on walks and make your turns according to if you see people or not. So turn away from the people, and that's how you decide what direction to walk in. Explore your neighborhoods, explore parks that you haven't been in before. There's a lot of opportunity to get out and about.
And now talk to us about some of the ways in which museums are handling admission and sort of keeping crowds apart during the pandemic. Like, how can you visit a local museum safely right now in Ottawa?
Yeah, and I mean, people love the national museums in Ottawa. If you live here, if you've got children, a lot of people get the family membership so that they can go back again and again. The animals at the Agriculture and Food Museum, or the airplanes at Aviation and Space. It's just, we're so blessed. We're so lucky to have these resources. So in lockdown times, there's still ways to enjoy the museums. There's great virtual programming. There's virtual tours. There's Ask a Curator nights. There's interactive activities from the museums. Back in the summer, museums were open. The National Gallery of Canada was the first come, first served museum. The other ones did have time tickets so that you were assured that the capacity limits weren't superseded. And they're really, those, when you think of the museums, they're large. Like, think of the Grand Hall at the Canadian Museum of History. It's enormous. There's a lot of space there. So it is easy to physically distance from other people. The Tiefum Bunker, they have an escape room with Escape Manor. There's soon to be launching a second one when we come out of lockdown. The Bytown Museum has been closed through the pandemic, but when they reopen, the stories they tell of Ottawa and Ottawa's early history and the building of the Rideau Canal, those are fascinating things. They've started a lecture series. Again, they've got great content on their website. There's ways to learn so much about the region.
Now, there's a newsletter that people can sign up for on the Ottawa Tourism website to sort of get ideas over the next week.
Exactly. So every Thursday we send out an email called What's Happening in the Ottawa Area. So you can Google that or go to ottawatourism.ca. If you give us your email address, then once a week in your inbox, you'll have a list of, usually it's between 8 and 12 or 15 different options for that coming week. And because we do it on a weekly basis, it's up to date. It's COVID safe. It's following the protocols. It's as up to date as we can get it when we send it out each Thursday. It's also posted on the website the Wednesday before. It's bilingual, so you get it in both languages. We also have an event calendar that you can search at any time. Our social media accounts, if you follow the hashtag #MyOttawa, you'll see some great images on Instagram and great content on Facebook and Twitter as well. So there's lots of ways to learn what's happening and get up-to-date, accurate information.
I know I'm a subscriber, and it's a real treat to get some fresh ideas of what to do every week. Now, we only have a couple of minutes left in our time together. Andrew, did you have any parting words for our audience, any parting tips or things you wanted to leave us with really quickly?
Yeah, I think it's easy to see all the negative and be the doom and gloom about travel and how we've all missed it so badly for the past 9 months or so. But one thing I think it's not often mentioned with everything going on is it's a great time now to prepare for your next big trip, whether it's in 6 months, in 1 year. That's really irrelevant. But one way to travel virtually from home is to actually immerse yourself in reading about a destination, discovering where you'd like to go. Doing that research will not only help you travel kind of in another not as fun way, but a way to kind of escape the daily grind of the pandemic, but also will be very helpful when you are ready to travel, because the best way to travel more authentically, more enjoyably, more cheaply as well, is to be prepared, do your research, and have all these things done. So now is as good a time as ever, because we all have extra time. There's so much information available online, whether it's about destinations, about tips on how to travel for less. So it's a great time to kind of learn about that, so that everyone is ready. And because there's going to be a lot of pent up demand. We've heard the term revenge travel. A lot of people are going to be like, okay, whenever this thing is over, I'm going to travel more than I've ever traveled, which is great. But it takes preparation if you really want to do it well. So I suggest everyone kind of use that time in lockdown to read up about wherever they want to go.
Absolutely. I love being able to daydream even at a time like this. We only have about a minute or so left in the show. Lorraine, last but not least, it's a great segue to some of the trips that you're hoping to host later on this fall if things go well. Yep. Tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to.
Well, I love to host trips. I love to take people with me, and they enjoy it because, I mean, for example, I took some octogenarians with me to Myanmar and they loved it. So I like to take people, whether they be travel agents, where I'm teaching them and coaching them to sell more and get their messaging correct, and even being good on camera. Or other things I love to do is to just lead a group to places like seeing Andrea Bocelli in concert at his villa, or to my home country in the UK. I'm going to be taking people off the beaten path. Oh, and going to visit Downton Abbey and a few of the Bridgerton sites that have been seen lately on Bridgerton, which is a wonderful series that's just been out on Masterpiece. So those are, on Netflix, sorry, not Masterpiece. And those are some of the places that I would like to visit. And I just enjoy having the company of other people, and they enjoy having the security of having somebody there. If something goes wrong, I can help them to find a pharmacy if they need it, or to help them with their visas if they need it, and that kind of thing. And plus, I know where I'm going, so we enjoy it.
That's always helpful. And people can find out more about some of those tours that you're hosting in the future, as well as your new show. Are they able to access that on your website?
Yes, LorraineSimpson.com. We kept it easy. All the shows are on there, including a few funny things. And I try to make it lighthearted. I want to make people laugh. If we don't laugh during this, we're going to cry. And we will get through this. We will get through it together. And I'm always there to help people to see it with a smile on their face. So Post-Pandemic Bucket List is the show. And it's just really about having a bit of fun.
Thank you so much, Lorraine Simpson, Jantine Van Kruchten, and Andrea Moore. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and for sharing your advice with our audience on how to travel safely in a COVID-19 world. And if you're watching us tonight, thank you so much for joining. We'll see you again next week.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response Line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Each week on Grill This, Smoke That, Steph Legary showcases delicious recipes from across Canada, all done on the grill. Join Steph and his special guests on Grill This, Smoke That, Fridays on Rogers TV.